Hey everyone, thanks for joining Learn to Play Games. My name is Lance, and in today's video I'm going to look at a brand new game coming to Kickstarter called Forsaken. This is a new one from Game Tray Labs. Yes, you heard me right, the same people that make those awesome inserts that are in some of the games you currently have sitting on your shelf are coming to Kickstarter for the very first time with their own game, and this is a massive one. This is a 1 to 4 player game that takes roughly 45 minutes to an hour per player that is playing, and is a competitive, narratively driven sandbox adventure game, which means that as the players, you're going to be competing with each other throughout the game to gain victory points. And at the end of the game, the player that has the most victory points will be the winner of the game. This is a narrative game, which means there's a massive story with this one that is going to have all kinds of different branching arcs, both for the players or characters that are playing and the world as a whole. As the players play through the game, they're going to have encounters and all kinds of other things that will have them reading text and making tough decisions. It will provide them with choices that are going to change the way that some of the elements in the game work, adding additional cards and tokens to the board. And this is not just a couple of sentences. There are full paragraphs that are going to set the mood for this game throughout the game and will change it as you go along. So the game is going to have plenty of replayability as you're discovering the narrative for the world, as well as your own character. This is also a sandbox game, so there's lots of different paths to victory with this one. There is no set path for the player. Each character will have their own way of completing the game or triggering the end of the game as they go through their story, and if they can complete their story, that will be one of the end game triggers, as well as gaining victory points. And there'll be certain thresholds based on the length of the game you wish to play that once met are going to trigger end game. As well as if you run out of one of the encounter decks in one of the different planets, that will also trigger the end game. And then from there, you're going to determine who is the winner based on the victory points that they have. So with this one, in the video, I'm going to show you the main features of this game, and then I'll also show you a sample turn to give you a good idea how this one plays. As always, if you find my videos helpful, if you like what I do, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to my channel. It's one of the easiest ways you can support channels like mine so we can continue to grow and be able to produce this content. If you want to get notifications anytime I release new videos, also give that notification bell a ring, and that'll let you know when I drop new stuff. Before getting into the video, I do want to point out that all the materials you see here are prototype materials and are subject to change, and will look a lot better than the final production copy of the game. This is, of course, made by Game Trays, so there's going to be all kinds of beautiful inserts for this one that will help with both setup and organization as you play. And as you can tell, this is a massive game that takes up a lot of table space, so having these inserts and organizers is going to be really handy, where you can potentially keep some of these things off the table and bring them on and pass them around as needed as well, depending upon the table size you have. And they're designing this specifically to help with setup and all that as well. So as you're pulling things out of the box, you'll be able to plop them down, pull things off, and you're ready to go. So let's go ahead and head to the table, and we'll see how this one plays. So the first thing I'll look at are the different characters you can play as this is a main feature of the game, as each character plays very differently, and a lot of the game is about exploring and learning how to play your character and diving into their story and completing the different feats that your character has. So moving over to the board itself, so each character is going to have a unique trait that's going to give them some sort of ability. For example, with our character here, she has bravado, which allows her to connect as a free action once per turn, which allows her to work with the factions, doing odd jobs, trying to do different things that I'm going to cover in a little bit. Each character is also going to have a legend track, and as they gain legend, they're going to move their token around this track, and each time they move onto or through a space, they're going to gain some sort of reward for completing that, even as much as victory points. With our character here, a lot of the time her abilities and bonuses are going to focus around infamy, and this is her way of gaining different things. Now, infamy is a double-edged sword, as obviously she is going to gain it and gain different abilities based on the amount of infamy she has. This is also going to make her a prime target for other players to potentially attack her, as they're going to get rewards if they're able to defeat her in combat. Now, like I said, each character is also going to have a main story that is going to be played over chapters, and the character is going to learn more and more about themselves. For our character, she, for example, has landed on this desolate rock to make a name for herself, and she is a fixer doing odd jobs and favors for other factions and other things. And now she is trying to get off of this planet, and she is cashing in on some of these jobs that she's done and the goodwill that she's done to hopefully get off of this rock and onto another one as she continues to build her name. Now each character is going to have feats that they are trying to achieve that allow them to advance their story. At the beginning of the game, you're going to start with one of the S feats, and each one of these is going to have different requirements for your character, and there's going to be a number of these included in the game that are going to give you different things that you must complete based on the level or current chapter that you're in for your character. And these will get harder and harder as the game progresses, or they have more and more requirements you have to complete. And then each character is also going to have a collection of their own that is going to be unlocked as they move around and do different things that they'll gain. Each character is going to have a number of hit points, and then as the characters I talked about earlier, they will be able to do jobs for the different factions that are in there. And these jobs are going to range all kinds of different things, including elimination jobs where you're going to have a particular bounty you're going to go after, or delivery jobs where you're going to have to move around the different planets and stop at specific locations, potentially all in the same turn, or crises where you're going to have to take care of something or have to handle something, and then you'll receive bonuses for that. You're able to have one job in each one of the different factions, and when you complete the job, you're going to gain a victory point as well as reputation for that faction that you can cash in at that faction's headquarters to gain all kinds of cool cards that are going to add additional effects to your game, or giving you additional traits or all kinds of other stuff. Now, players are also going to have a hand of starting cards that will include different gear that they can play during their turn to gain different things. For example, with our character here, she has the jetpack, which allows her to do a free move to a persona on the planet, or an Omni kit, which will allow her before combat or before a roll, she can play this to add an additional die to that roll. And these are going to be, once they're used, they're going to go into the discarded section, and you'll have to gain them back in a certain way, which I'll cover in a little bit. So you'll have to spend these in certain situations to help yourself out. Now, the other important thing or cool thing that you can do as a character is your weapon, and this can be upgraded or improved upon, or as you gain new weapons, you'll be able to slot those in there. Now, the interesting thing with this is you're going to kind of tailor your weapon as well. So, for example, if I place this weapon in here as my active weapon, any other cards that I have will be flipped over to their other side, their backside, and then these will be tacked on to that weapon, so making it more and more powerful. And you can have up to 4 upgrades as long as each upgrade has a different symbol on the side here. And these are going to add all kinds of different effects, such as doing additional damage or giving you a shield and additional die to your roll when you attack and do different things. Each character is also going to have access to resources that they can use to spend to buy different things from the market or black market or all kinds of other things. And there'll be 2 different types of resources. You'll have your standard gray resources, and then you'll have yellow resources, which are more valuable as the game goes on. And this is just kind of scratching the surface, as each character has all kinds of different things for them. Each character is also going to have their own miniature that will represent them on the game board. The next thing I want to cover are the different factions included in the game. And before going over that, another cool feature of this game is, of course, it's made by game trays, so every single component is going to have its own tray system that it can go into, and will make it easy to help you set up the game and keep everything organized as you play the game, which is really neat. So from there, moving into there's 3 main factions that are going to be in this game. We have the Cartel, the Sanction, and Even I. And each one of these factions is going to have a persona as well that is going to be randomized in the game. And these personas, when visiting the faction, will gain you a different benefit, or you can choose to spend a benefit or one of your tokens or something to gain a better benefit. And then the persona is going to move around the board, which is going to be outlined at the bottom. Like I said, once you gain reputation with a faction, if you visit its headquarters, you can spend that reputation to gain one of its cards. And these cards are going to have all kinds of powerful effects, including giving you new gear for that, or different traits or talents that will give you all kinds of different abilities that will allow you to do cool things. So all kinds of stuff for those factions. Next, I want to look at the different planets. So there's going to be 3 planets included in the game, and these are going to be the main game boards that players are going to be moving around throughout the game to complete different jobs, visiting different special locations, and all kinds of other things. And there's going to be different locations on each planet that the player can visit, such as the scrapyards. If it has the scrounge token on it, the player can potentially gain additional resources from that location, or visiting the clinic to heal up all of their health, or the different HQs for the different factions to gain or do different jobs, and all kinds of other things, such as the black market the players can go and potentially buy gear or items from, or the armory, or visiting a cantina to gamble, and all kinds of different locations. The players will be able to move from planet to planet using the different ports or other means, such as the transportation hub and other things, to move around those planets to be able to do different things. The main planet is also going to have your victory point tracker that'll track the victory points that the players have throughout the game. And then each planet is also going to have its own encounter deck that'll be slotted in to a space that is connected to the planet that you can't see as it's off camera now, but you'll see it a little bit later. Each one of these decks can be customized throughout the game, and new cards will be added into them based on the effects that the players have throughout the game. Each one of these cards is going to have all kinds of different effects, and some of them will have a choice or will depend on where the player is. On the outer reaches of the planet, these places are a little bit more rough and dangerous, so the player will have to resolve those effects there. Or on the inner planet that's a little bit more controlled, the player will have a little easier time at the top location. And each one of these cards is going to have different effects, and then you're going to have to reference an encounter and in the book to determine what is going to happen based on the choices the player makes. Some of these will have you fighting different enemies or making tough decisions that are going to impact the planet and the game as you play through, potentially adding additional cards to your encounter deck and all kinds of other things that are going to truly change the way the game plays. The final thing I want to go over before moving into the sample turn is the dice tower. So of course this is a really cool dice tower, but it actually will be used in the game for actual effects as well. So as you're going to see in the base of the tower, as I pan down here, there are going to be different effects on the different spaces based on where the dice roll. And these are going to include damage that will damage the player, as well as strength, which will be used in combat, and it was also going to be used to determine a number of different things. So as the dice roll into and out of the tower, they're going to land in these different spaces and gain the benefits of that space. Each die is going to have a number of sides on it as well. So you're going to have blank sides that will simply just add the effects of that space. And then you'll have critical sides, which are going to double the effects of that space, including that space's strength, as well as any damage that that space does. And as you get farther and farther down into the tower, you can see that there's going to be more effects with that as well. So for example, if we look at, let's say that our player was scrounging and had to roll 2 dice in here to determine what he got out of it, this would come out to be, it's going to be a critical. So this player is going to add up all of the different things and take damage where applicable. So down here in this space here, it's going to do 2 damage to that player, but then we'll also double the strength of that space. So he's going to get 6 and 7 resources that he'll be able to gain from the bag from that. So a very lucky roll in this situation. So as the game goes on, just like every other component in this game, there's going to be ways of manipulating the dice and changing their values, including removing dice from the board or being able to shift them to a adjacent space to help or hinder the different players as they play through. The final thing I want to show you is a sample turn in action to give you a good idea how this one plays. Now with this game, this is played over an undefined number of turns. Starting with the first player and proceeding clockwise, each player will continually take a turn after the previous player until one of 3 different endgame conditions is met. The first is if a player completes their story arc. That will trigger endgame, or if one of the planets runs out of encounter cards in their encounter deck, or if the players reach the threshold of victory points that they have set at the beginning of the game. A standard game is 16 victory points. So once one of the players reaches that will also trigger endgame, where each of the players will finish off their turn, and then the player that has the most victory points will be the winner of the game. So moving into the game itself, I'm going to go ahead and have Mandorax be the starting player. And so during each player's turn, it is broken down into 2 steps. The action step, where the player is going to receive 3 actions. They can spend those actions to do a variety of different things, including moving around the board, interacting with the different factions, completing jobs, and all kinds of other things that we're going to kind of get into here. Once that player has completed that step of their turn, then they'll move into the encounter step if there is one, and this will be depending upon certain factors, where they're going to draw an encounter from the planet that they're on and resolve the effects of that encounter, making tough decisions along the way that's going to impact the game. So moving into Mando's turn here, he is going to, again, he has 3 actions that he can use to do a variety of things. His current feat that he's trying to achieve is to explore. So he's trying to mark a number of different landmarks on this. And this is going to be based on the current chapter. So he is in chapter 1. So he needs to mark 2 out of the 4 landmarks that are on his card, which one of them is going to be on this planet over here. We have 1 on this planet, 1 on that planet, and then we also have the clinic. So depending upon what he wants to mark, and the way he's going to mark this is if he is at one of these spaces at the start of his turn, or he can choose to discard a gear card from his hand to do to mark that location as a free action. So he is pretty close to one that he needs to get to, which is over here. So let's go ahead and do his first action, which lets him move up to 2 spaces. So he's going to go ahead and move on to that space there as his first action. His second action, as a free action, it says that he can discard a card to mark that location. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm hoping not to necessarily get into combat right away. So I think I'm going to play Resilience and just discard that. Now I can get these cards back by starting my turn next to a pylon, but up until that point, then once they're discarded, that is it. So that location is going to be marked. So I have met one of my requirements now. So I'll go ahead and mark on there that I have completed that. And that one is that location. So I just need one more to complete this chapter so I can work my way around there. So I think from there, I could interact with them to do that. So let's go ahead and have him make his way towards the next location. So his second action, he's going to move again. And his third action, he's going to go ahead and move through the portal. And then I think I'm going to hold off there as I could. He's trying to make his way over here. And then I'm going to go ahead and use motivation as a free action. Lets him move 2 additional spaces. So I'll go there. That way I'm actually pretty close to the clinic. So the next turn, I won't be able to start there, but I can discard my final card to complete that. Or actually, instead of that, let's go ahead and go here and here next to the pylon. Or I can go here and then move up here. That way then I'm closer to that as well. But then I can start next to a pylon and then I'll get my cards back, which will definitely help me. So at this point, I don't have anything else to do during this turn. The second part of his turn is the encounter step, where he's going to draw the top encounter card from the encounter deck of the planet that he's currently on. So let's go ahead and draw and see what we have here. Oh, so we have 2 different results based on where you're located on the planet. On the inner part, this is a little safer, so you're going to read the top part. If I was on the outer part of the planet, I'd have to read the bottom, which is definitely a little bit more dangerous. So with this one, I have a reactor leak. Only 3 pylons remain operational in the Imperade power array. This reactor has become breached, spilling unstable raw energy into Thyrrian landscape. So I'm going to gain a booster. So I gain one of these tokens and place it in my area. That's cool. And then I'm going to place the reactor leak token S23 from the reserve onto your space. All right, so this token says you may gain 1 damage to gain a boost at the start of your turn here. Oh, that's kind of interesting. All right, so that will be placed onto here. And now if I would have happened to have a vision token, I could have spent that instead, and that would have let me move 2 spaces, and I would have gained a legend on my legend track. So depending upon if you have certain things, that can also help you along the way as well. So that'll go ahead and be discarded, and that will be the end of Madarax's turn. So then we're going to move on to the next player in clockwise order. So I'll go ahead and take one more turn with her, and I'll show you how that works. So with our other player here, she has freelance. So she is going to try to complete a job from different factions, and it's going to be based again on that chapter. So right now she just needs to complete one job from one of the factions. So she just so happens to be pretty close to one of the factions, and she has some really cool abilities that are going to help her out with this. So moving into her turn, let's go ahead and spend her first action to move. So I'm going to go ahead and move 2 spaces to here. And that'll put me next to that faction. So from there, then I'm going to go ahead and take my trait here. I have Bravado, which lets me connect as a free action once per turn. So a connect action basically lets you interact with that faction. So first off, I'm going to gain the effects of the persona of that faction, which gives me a choice. I can either scrounge for 2, or I can gain 2 if I have a yellow resource. I could spend that to gain 1 rep in the cartel and 1 rep in another faction, and then I can move to any space on Port Ambition. So I do not currently have that, or don't have that to spend, so I'm going to have to scrounge for 2. So that'll let me dig into the bag and take 2 resources. So hopefully I'll find a yellow in here. So let's see, the first one is a yellow. Wow, that was a good pull. And second, there's only a few in here, so it's unlikely to pull an extra, but that's all right. That gives me some more resources to work with. And then I'm going to take the top job from that area, and this one is a crisis. So with this one, when I get a job, I can choose either to take this top one or discard it and take the next one. So with this one, it is at the black market, and it's covert surveillance. As a special action, I can pay the cost below at the indicated place to complete this job. This one is going to have me discarding 3 gear. So currently I only have 2, so this isn't necessarily the best one for me. I'd have to be able to purchase additional gear at one of the other locations, which I do have some good resources now, and there are some gear cards out, so I could potentially do that. And the black market is actually pretty close to me, so I think I'm going to hold on to this one, and then I'll slot that into the slot for this particular faction, which is the cartel there. All right, so I have accepted that job, and so I'm ready to move on with my turn. So at this point, and then I also have to move that faction, so or the token here. So it's going to go ahead and move to the Shell Flats, and I have to find that real quick. That is over here. So that faction will drop down there, and then from there, let's see. That was my first action. So second action, I'm going to go 1, 2. And then as my third action, I think I will interact with the black market, which is going to allow me to purchase things. So with the black markets, I am going to be able to gain 1 gear, and my yellows normally are going to count as 2 resources. At the black market, they actually count as 3, so they give me a little bit of an extra boost with that. So I have a couple of choices for gear. I could take the Connect Field, which lets me shift 1 and gain 2 defense. So this is a great defensive one. Or this one lets me, as a free action, I can connect with a persona on any planet. Wow, that's really nice as well. So with her main focus trying to potentially be completing jobs and stuff, that might be a really good one to gain as well. Both of these are great options. I think I'm just going to go ahead and go with that one. So I'm going to go ahead and spend that yellow and 1 gray that I just got and pick up that comm feed. So that'll be placed into my area. And then I'll draw a new one of these at the end of the round and place that in there. These will be returned to the supply. And that is the end of my turn, as that was my third action at this point. So from there, then I will again move into drawing an encounter. So with this one, this is the Chitterwings, or Wigs. Once a designer pet, the Chitterwigs have become nothing short of an infestation. They are notorious for stealing anything they can and for their love of vandalism and graffiti. So this one is going to have me add the Chitterwigs token, S2 from the reserve, to your space and immediately suffer its effects. draw and resolve another encounter. Oh no! So not only do I have to place a token and suffer its effects, which is to discard 1 gear after you move here. Oh man. So I have to lose 1 of my gear right away, which unfortunately means that I'm not going to be able to complete my objective right away. And then I have to draw another encounter card. This one is Besieged by Meech. So following up on a tip for a job, you meet with the Commodora Meech in a neon-lit Port Ambition tap room. She spritzes a mist of saline solution on a little candid creature in her lap, and it quivers with contentment. You notice an Imperade rank badge displayed on the hem of her blouse. I need help saving my little dumpling, she says, gesturing to the small beast nuzzling her. Her medicine was confiscated by those monsters at Sanction, and this rash is simply tormenting her. Dumpling stares at you mutely with her dead black eyes. So this one is going to provide us with a choice that we must make, and another player will go ahead and reference the thing in the encounter book and read the section based on your choice. So with this one, I can choose to either accept the job, and then I would read section 1, or I can choose to kidnap Dumpling and read section 2. So I'm going to go ahead and try to help Dumpling and see what happens with this one. So then the other player would go ahead and read that entry in the book. So with this one, it is going to have us nodding resolutely. You agree to take on the system's most powerful and violent faction to spare the beautiful, angelic Dumpling even one more moment of suffering. So I'm going to take card L3 from the reserve and set it beside your job row. It does not occupy a job slot. And then you're going to advance the bounty tracker. So that will move down 1. And then I need to find card L3 and place that in here. So there's L3, that's a crisis card, so Dumpling's medicine. And that will end her turn. So at this point, then you would continue moving back to the next player, and this is going to continue going back and forth again until one of those endgame conditions is met. So I hope you found this video helpful in deciding whether or not you want to back this one on Kickstarter. If you have any questions or comments, please post those in the comment section below and I'll do my best to answer them. Or swing by the Kickstarter's comment section and drop them there as well. I'm sure Game Trace would love to hear from you and is more than happy to answer any questions you have. Until next time, I'll see you later.